What I wanted to talk to you about, we talked last week, the title of the sermon was, anybody? All, very good. The title of the sermon was All. Last week we talked about how God has, and Christ has all authority over all nations, all people, everything, to the smallest to the biggest. One of the best things you can learn in your life is that one fact. It is the hardest thing to wrap your head around. Would you agree? Yeah, it's hard to wrap your head around that because things don't seem to work that way sometimes, especially when your life starts doing, you're here and all of a sudden it's going down and you're going, wait a minute, where are you? What we're going to look at today is the subject matter of forgiveness. Forgiveness actually is another major critical aspect of your existence. Your ability to understand forgiveness and properly forgive literally will change your life, and I don't want you to miss that. Your life will actually improve if you learn the art of forgiveness. Now, being that my wife is here, I have to be honest. I struggle with forgiveness. I'm one of those people that if you do something that I really don't like, I could wait 3 or 4 years before I get even with you. I'll wait if I have to. So I have a hard time with it, and I'm sure some of you struggle with it. So I want to give you a little bit of light side. So give me my Beverly Hillbillies, Alan. And I hope you all watch Beverly Hillbillies. I can't hear. I don't think they had that kind of music. Back me up.
I sure wish I could invite you into the kitchen for some coffee and pickles, but Granny's so mean and cantankerous when it comes to... Pearl! Forgive me. I'm the one that set the law on you. Please forgive me, Pearl. I'm so ashamed. Forgive me, Pearl. Don't let Jim throw me out of the class. You set the law on me? Oh, I'm low, Pearl. Awful low and mean. Step on me, Pearl. Step on me. Step on me like you would a worm. Hop on me. Grind your feet on me. Wake me up. Pearl. Mr. Policeman, run over me. I don't deserve to live. Run over me and throw my poor old mean body to the buzzard.
All right, Granny, now that's enough.
But Pearl hasn't forgiven me yet. Mr. Policeman, give your gun to Pearl and let her shoot me. Don't find me out there. Put a curse on me, Pearl. I forgive you. I forgive you. But I deserve to be punished. And punished bad. Sing to me, Pearl.
Granny, Pearl done said she forgives you.
Am I taken back to the clan? Am I welcome to the bosom of my family?
I reckon.
Pearl, you are an angel. You can have anything I got anytime. You can have any part of my kitchen. Throw me out of it. Set the dogs on me. Take your Granny into the house, please.
Sure, Bob. Did you want her?
No, I didn't want her. Walk me, Pearl. Come in the house. Come on in the house and walk me, Pearl.
All right. We got a little bit. Is that a wasp? Who brought the wasp in? Wilt. So forgiveness. Big issue. Big issue. It's one of those things that if you do not deal with it, it will permeate your whole life. It will slowly but surely convince you that everything is not trustworthy. It's like a fungus. So when you think about forgiveness, if you hear what I'm going to say to you today and you don't take it serious and you just keep that attitude of not forgiving, I can promise you, you are making your life miserable and you are making others' lives miserable. It is one of the most genius things God came up with and demonstrated to us how it should be done. So, I can't beat that horse enough. So now I'm going to take you into it, and I want to show you some things to help you think through this. But if you go to Matthew 18, starting in verse 21, and we'll have that on the screen. Then Peter came and said to him, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him until... And Jesus comes back, Jesus said unto him, I say not unto thee until 7 times, but... ASV, huh? Until 70 times 7. How many is that? 7 times 70? Who's good at math? Yeah. Have any of you done that yet? 490? It's nice to know that I'm not the only one. Go on, Alan. I'm still counting. Okay. Therefore is the kingdom of heaven likened unto a certain king who would make a reckoning with his servants. And when he had begun to reckon, one was brought unto him that owed him 10,000 talents. But forasmuch as he had not wherewithal to pay his lord, command him to be sold, and his wife and children and all that he had, and payment to be made. The servant therefore fell down and worshipped him, saying, Lord, have patience with me, I will pay thee all. And the Lord of that servant, being moved with compassion, released him and forgave him the debt. But the servant went out, found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 shillings, and he laid hold of him and took him by the throat, saying, Pay what thou owest. So his fellow servant fell down and besought him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will pay thee. Then Peter came up and said to him, Lord, how often will my brother sin against me, and I will forgive him? As many as 7 times. I don't know. And I'm sorry about using ESV. Yeah, I don't know how that got on there, but it's hard to read, but it's a good lesson in reading for me. So he said, Then his master summoned him and said to him, You wicked servant, I forgave you all the debt because you pleaded with me. And should not you have had mercy on your fellow servant as I had mercy on you? And in anger his master delivered him to the jailers until he should pay all his debt. Now I want you to, other translations do a better job of this, by the way, which you all can tell. Some of the translations, especially the New American Standard, says to the torturer. And that is, to me, the better translation. And I'll explain to you why that's such a good thing. So also my heavenly Father will do to every one of you if you do not forgive your brother from your heart. That's good. Thanks, Alan. Okay, now I'm going to bring it back into English language. Modern day. You've all read probably that before in your scriptures. You've got the issue of this individual, and I love the parable that Jesus gives, who goes to his master and says to him, I can't pay you this debt. And we're talking like $10 million. I mean, it's astronomical amount of money. And he is at a point where his whole family is going to be thrown into a debtor's prison. That's the illustration that Jesus is using. And then this guy gets forgiven, goes into the street, finds a guy that owes him a few dollars, starts shaking him and demanding him pay him back. Give me what you owe me. And of course, the guy can't pay it, and he throws him in debtor's prison. The statement that Jesus makes about, you wicked man, that first guy, telling him that he is now going to be thrown in and tortured. The reason why that's a great word right there is because I'm willing to argue, and I can't prove it, but I'm willing to argue that Jesus at that moment was identifying the effect lack of forgiveness has on an individual. It's torturous when you refuse to forgive like you've been forgiven as a Christian. You enter into the arena where you now are going to have to deal with the torment of your refusal to forgive. That's why I think that word is so strong there, tortured. You tell me, you all know, you've had those moments. Tell me it doesn't torture you. Tell me that when you don't forgive somebody, that it just does not eat at you continually. It's hard to get it out of your head, isn't it? You can talk to me. It's really hard to get out of your head. You can't move past the fact that you've been done wrong. Now, you know what's amazing about that is it has no effect on the person that has offended you. It only affects you. They're fine. They don't even care most of the time. But you are sitting there allowing that to just eat your life away. I mean, it took me years to move past certain elements in my life that occurred. One of the best things, and I'll give you an illustration. One of the best books I ever read when I started studying psychology was Your Parents and You. I always talk about this book. Dr. McGee and some other guy helped him write it. But when I read that book, number one, it opened your head up real wide. I mean, you just started seeing things you didn't even know were there in your head. But it allowed me to forgive my father. Now, my dad, you've all met him, but my dad and I didn't always have a good relationship. It got real bad for a while where we weren't even talking to each other. But when I went through that book on forgiveness and identifying who God is and who I am and then who everyone else is, when I went through that book, I realized that my number one problem was I had never forgiven my father. So I tricked him. I got him to get in my truck. I told him I wanted to show him something. Got him in my truck so he couldn't get away from me. And I started driving around and I said, I'm not letting you out until you tell me who you are. And he started telling me his whole life. I had no idea my dad had gone through the things he had gone through. And I sat there and looked at him and I said, I want you to know this. I now forgive you. And from that point on, we were fine. Neither one of us were perfect. But we were fine now because that element of lack of forgiveness had such a hold on me in our relationship. We couldn't function. You know, I was always, and again, what happens is you'll start looking for it. So let me give you the attitude of unforgiveness. What unforgiveness does to you is you immediately start building in your head scenarios where it's, well, they did this to me before, they'll just do it again. And you'll wait for them, almost motivating the situation to happen, just so you can say, see, I told you so. See, they still do it to me. You'll push in a direction. And then what starts happening is you start distrusting everybody. Little things they say or do will click, and you go, well, I can't trust that guy now. I mean, that obviously, he's going to go this way with this. He's going to use me, take advantage of me. All of that lack of forgiveness will just develop and seep into the rest of your life. Here's the hard part. You don't even know it's happening most of the time. It develops into bitterness. You become demotivated. You get angry at the drop of a hat. People look at you funny. And you respond with a lack of forgiveness. You're owned at that moment. So let me walk you through some stuff. We've identified the fact that not forgiving is like torture. Your life is tortured if you're a person who's unforgiving. There's no other way to look at it. I told you it would bleed into other areas of your life. You lose your ability to trust others. Just think about it. You'll wait for people to mess up. You'll fail to enjoy the relationships you have. You'll actually get to the point that those ones that you like being around don't even live up to your standards. Have you seen that in your life anywhere? I mean, I've been guilty of that. I mean, it'll get to the point where you'll go, well, I'm still angry. So all of those good moments that start to flow in, you cancel them out. You can't help it. Because that whole spirit of lack of forgiveness has got such a hold on you. Let me give you a little more. You become excessively negative. By the way, most depression, people who struggle with it, if it's not a chemical depression, most depression comes from your life of lack of forgiving. It just is true. So if you're a person who is struggling with depression and it's not a chemical imbalance, it's because you haven't forgiven. Pretty convicting. You're all quiet. Now you know how I felt when I wrote it. I think the most difficult people to forgive are people who deny it. Isn't that amazing? You can go to somebody who is guilty and they know they're guilty. I love it. Being a police officer, you run into it all the time. I know you do. What? I didn't do nothing. Yeah, you did. It's got to be the hardest one to deal with. Somebody who will not admit their guilt. They deny it and avoid it. They won't just say they're sorry. They won't say, hey, let's fix this. It's what? You're the one with the problem, is what they usually say to you. Or they'll go find some other thing that you did so they can blame you for something you did to deny what really happened in the situation you're in. You know, we have a policeman here. I just had a thought. I was in jailhouse ministry, and there was these two guys that were in there, and they came up to me all upset, telling me that they were going to be given 7 years apiece in jail. And they were telling me, that's just not right. That's just not fair. And I said, well, what did you guys do? We broke into 7 homes. So you got a year for each house. I'm thinking that's a pretty good deal. You know, but in their mind, how dare they do that to us? The other problem I have with people that are hard to forgive are the ones that know better, they know the truth, they know how to use the truth to manipulate the scenario. Those people that you trust, like your parents or your government or pastors, people like that, when you trust them and they know the truth and they violate you and they don't repent and they don't admit it, tell me that isn't a hard one to do. Tell me it isn't hard to forgive someone like that. Sure it is, especially when they're leaders. Because everybody's looking for a chance to take leaders out. I mean, watch your news. If you're in charge, the goal is to take you down. They love it when they can take somebody down who has authority. They love it. They're the hard ones to forgive. But you know why they're so hard to forgive? Why forgiveness is difficult across the boards? It's because your expectations are misplaced expectations. Now, don't miss that. I had somebody say to me years ago, if you don't expect anything from anybody, you'll never be disappointed. That's a great line. And your expectations usually start out, first and foremost, incorrect in reference to yourself. So you start your life out usually with false expectations of yourself, a false view of yourself. You think that you should be here or you should be here, or, I mean, the negatives that come out of people that I hear about themselves personally. This expectation that they think they should live up to. And then what's interesting to me is people that have false expectations of themselves, they go really in one arena or the other. One arena, they just immediately start crashing. I'm no good, I'm bad. I'm ugly, I'm awful, I'm stupid, I'm a sinful person, nobody loves me, they'll never love me, they don't like me, and they'll go that direction. And then you have the other group that goes the other direction, which is they think they are so on top of the world, they are so smart, they know everything there is to know, and then they want to let you know how much they know. Those people show up and they'll start quoting scripture to you, or they'll start explaining all their business knowledge to you. And really what they're doing is trying to convince you that they're living up to an expectation that is higher than what you are. It's amazing how this all works. And then you have that false expectation of other people. That's what that parable was about. It's when you get it in your heads, and don't miss this, that you have reached a level of superiority in your righteousness, that you have the right to spend your time judging the sins of other people as being worse than yours. Now, I'm not saying wrong isn't wrong. You should call wrong wrong. I'm talking about an attitude of judgmental spirit. An attitude where You spend your time looking for all the things everybody in your church is doing wrong. Everybody when they're driving is doing wrong, which we're all guilty of. Everything the government's doing wrong. Everything your spouse is doing wrong. Everything your kids are doing wrong. You get caught in this mindset. You get caught in this mindset where you just simply go, well, I'm the only one that's really got this figured out. You don't even think that way that you're thinking that way. But you do. The first time you spew out, well, I can't believe they're doing that. What's wrong with those people? You just identified that whole attitude. I'm willing to tell you, if you're a judgmental person, you do not understand your sin or your salvation. You have missed it. Why would Paul, as he wrote those letters, get to the point, the latter days of his life, where he said, I am the chief of all sinners? Do you see the wisdom in that statement? When you finally understand how much you've been forgiven, when you take the time to sit down and think back of the things you've done in your lives, those of you that are older, that have hurt people, really hurt people, when you think about that and you say to yourself, I'm a great guy, or I'm a great woman, when you're guilty of crime and bad stuff that God forgave you for, and then you go find somebody who has made a terrible mistake and they've sinned against you, and you want to haul them off to debtor's prison, you want to take them out, are we guilty? Shh, everybody's quiet. Are we guilty of that? It's amazing how guilty we are of that. Pride is an amazing thing. We get this attitude that has to go away, especially in a church, of just, I am superior to you. We don't even know it. And I'll beat this horse to death. We've got to move away from that attitude. Give me 1 Corinthians. I want to pull that up. You've seen it a million times. You know what's interesting about people who criticize hypocrites? People who run around and go, well, they're hypocrites. Do you know that I've found almost in every case, the person who says that is more hypocritical than the person they're calling a hypocrite? Same with people who go off on people stealing from them. I guarantee you, people who are going ballistic, well, that person stole from me. I can't believe they stole from me. I'm willing to bet you at least a year's pay they've stolen from someone else. They're usually the ones that scream the loudest. It's really true. Now, I'm not going to let this one go in this church either. This is something we have to learn in our lives. We have to do this. It's not an option. You try and treat this like an option, and you're cheating everyone around you out of a life well lived, and you're cheating yourself. Pray that God gives you this ability. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. Don't miss that one. I don't care if you're right. If you're not speaking to me and others in love, then it's worthless. It's just noise. It's not rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. Pretty convicting yet? If it doesn't convict you, you're dead. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing. What's that say? It is not happy. You're not happy when somebody's doing something wrong. You know what your response should be as a Christian when you catch someone wronging you? Grief, concern, compassion, a desire for them to change. It should not be vengeful thinking, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things. Bears all things. believes all things. Guess what? When you're a forgiving person, you're not worried about whether somebody's lying to you or trying to take advantage. You're living. You're giving them the opportunity to fail. You're moving away from trying to protect yourself from them and simply giving them the opportunity to be a human being. Look at that. Believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. What's that mean? A person who has a forgiving heart is willing to stay in it to the bitter end. Endures all things. Go on. Love never ends. That's good. I'm giving you the secrets to life. It works. Like I said, my wife knows a lot about me. She has seen, and my kids and my family, they know that I am not the nice guy that you all see at times. They have seen my lack of forgiveness of people. They have seen my bitterness. They have seen my rage. I'm not up here trying to tell you I've got this mastered. But I do know this. I want to master that. I don't have time, neither do you, to hold grudges. I do not have time to spend my life going around trying to figure out what everybody's doing that's wrong that doesn't agree with what I believe. I don't have time for that. I have enough to worry about in a day in reference to myself as one person. And I promise you, everyone in this room, I know you fairly well, most of you. I promise you, I know that you sin. So you're not conning anybody. So don't think for a minute that you have the right to pay attention so heavily to things I do right or wrong. Are you getting it? You got to move away from that. Now, there's roles of authority that always are in play to keep society balanced. You need to deal with wrong correctly. That's a societal thing that needs to occur. But on your personal life level, where you are as a human being, it's like I've told you before, Judge Stevenson and Judge Blankenship told me they find no enjoyment in sending someone to prison for life. But they do find enjoyment in the fact that justice was done. That's right thinking. It's good to love justice. It's wrong to want to inflict or enjoy inflicting judgment on someone. It's better to encourage them to a better lifestyle. Yes? Yes. You guys aren't talking much. You're going to sleep. Go to Psalms 103:12, and I'll wrap up. That's 1 and 2. There we go. As far as the east is from the west, so far does he remove our transgressions from each other. Remember when I said you have to deal with your own sin? Guys, if you've made a decision for Christ, he said it, I didn't. It's been removed. It's been removed. Go to Hebrews. Hebrews 8:12. And I'm only giving you a few. For I will be merciful towards their iniquities, and I will remember their sin no more. It's gone. If you're carrying around the weight of something you've done in the past and you haven't put it on the cross with Christ, I suggest you do that. The purpose of his death was to take your sin on himself to free you to be who God made you to be. Give it to him. Give it to him. Get rid of it. And then start living your life as if he's your Lord. Let him take you in the direction of becoming who you are. If you can't resolve the issue of forgiveness in your life, there's a very fine man that has come to this church a couple times. He's left some of his books. Dr. Vik Newsome. Right, Newsome? That's his whole subject. He wrote when he got his doctorate, that's what his book was on. He's covered the subject matter of self-forgiveness and learning how to forgive others. I don't know how well you all know Vik. Some of you know him. He is one of the most solid, balanced guys I've ever talked to. And he's as strong as he can be. He's not a weak man. But he knows and understands deeply this is what you need to do with forgiveness. You want counseling? He gives it. We put it on the loop that we do before church. Go get help if you can't forgive people. Go get help. And then that's probably enough. Yeah, it's enough.
No, give us more.
Well, you got I want to pray with everybody here, for everybody here. Keep me in this, because I need it too. I do not want to be a person. Oh, yeah. Got it. I don't want to be a person who, I don't want to get to my grave and not had made every effort possible to become as Christ-like as I could. It's not a guilt thing. It's really a goal. I mean, think about it. Show me anything that isn't cool about Jesus. I mean, why wouldn't you want to be like him? So I want to, for me in our church, I want to get us to a point where we really start moving down that road of changing. I can forewarn you all now. The more we move down that road, the more Satan is going to try and stop us. Okay? I was reminded that I didn't ask you to do an offering. So I guess we'll take care of it now. See, I'm the only preacher you probably know that doesn't ask for money.
Never going to get that joke.
You're right. You're right. There's a song, while they're doing that, there is a song I want to share, and then we'll just end. And I told my wife, who's talking right now, I told my wife I'll be in trouble for that. So I told my wife I had a present for her. So this is one of her favorite songs, and it sums up everything that I said today. So you can play this song for me. It's by a guy named Brian Duncan. And just read the words.
Lamb of God, the price you pay for a heart.